Hey YouTube, what's going on? It's Snowflarky's Emos. I'm here today with a Counter Fairy deck profile. Now, as many of you know, as a big trap card fan, especially counter traps, it is only natural that I am drawn to Counter Fairy as a deck and a playstyle. You know, I really like playing counter trap cards, and I like all these cards that benefit from them. So this is just my take on kind of what I'm playing, a for fun build here that revolves around Ties of the Brethren and Counter Fairy cards. You know, pretty standard stuff. With that, we'll just get into the card by card. Starting off with our monsters, I am playing 3 copies of Bountiful Artemis. This has pretty much always been the big payoff monster of the counter trap deck. It just says while this card's face up on the field, you draw a card every time a counter trap is activated. So you're going to play lots of counter traps to stop your opponent from doing things, and then Bountiful Artemis is going to replenish your hand so that you can have big follow-up plays on your next turn. So pretty simple. We want this card on the field because we want to draw cards. We want to replenish. Our board. Next up, I'm playing 2 Minerva, Scholar of the Sky. This card just says is a 1700 attack light fairy that gains 500 attack every time a counter trap is activated. That's pretty cool. We want this monster with big attack on the field because we can't indefinitely keep countering our opponent's turn. So we want big attack monster to close the game pretty quickly. And Minerva does that. It also has an additional effect if you're playing Sanctuary in the Sky, but I am not playing Sanctuary in the Sky in this build, so that does not matter. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of Honest. A lot of builds traditionally play 3, and I used to play 3, but I've cut it down to 2 in testing. I just find myself not actually going into the battle phase too often when this deck is working, just because of some of the special summoning lockout cards that this deck has. And as a result, I haven't found myself needing 3 Honest, but 2 Honest is still fine, especially since I can pull them out of the deck with Ties of the Brethren. It's a level 4 light fairy, so all these things work with each other in Ties of the Brethren. And, you know, I still can get Honest when I need it. Next up, I'm playing a copy of Barrier Statue of the Heavens. It's the level 4 light fairy type monster that neither player can special summon monsters except light monsters. Not a big deal for us. Everything we have is light. Given that this is a level 4 fairy, you can pull this off of Ties of the Brethren, and even given its effect, if you have this card in Ties of the Brethren, well, you can pull everything else out of it, which is pretty nice, and can just outright win the game. Now this is a card I'm testing. It's 1 copy of Aurora Paragon. This card is a level 4 light fairy, 1500 attack. This card states that neither player can special summon monsters when so that effect is just a little different. It just means that if I am playing a deck that I know is special summoning light monsters, like something like Blue Eyes or whatever, I can go into Aurora Paragon instead to still lock them out of special summoning. Now, this card does have one bad effect that, of course, when a monster is normal summoned to either player's side of the field, destroy this card. Normally a pretty bad effect, but we have ways in this deck to protect them. I mean, with the Solemn package, it's easy to negate your opponent's normal summon, and then with this card not being able to special summon, that just kind of ends their turn. And also, we have trap cards that can just keep this thing from destroying itself, and definitely worth investing in because this effect is incredibly powerful. If you don't like this card, you can put in your 3rd copy of Honest. Perfectly fine thing to do. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Guiding Ariadne. Nice little counter fairy pendulum monster here. When we put it in our pendulum zone, it makes it so that we don't have to pay life points or discard cards to activate any form of counter trap, which is pretty nice. Definitely a card we want to see as quickly as possible because it makes our counter traps, the good counter traps anyway, a lot more free. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can reveal 3 counter traps from your deck. Your opponent selects one of them and you add it to your hand. The rest gets shuffled back in the deck. So pretty cool. Even if it gets destroyed, you get a counter trap out of it, and it even gives it a useful monster effect. Also, you can just use it if it's the only monster in your hand to pull the rest out off of Ties of the Brethren. And last for my monsters, I am playing 2 copies of Luster Pendulum, the Draco Slayer. Luster Pendulum here is a pendulum monster, but you mostly use it because of its effect once per turn. If you have a card in your other pendulum zone, you can destroy that card and add a card from your deck to your hand with the same name. So we can destroy an Ariadne to get an Ariadne. That way we keep Ariadne's effect, but then we also get Ariadne to search us a counter trap. So we might as well. Pretty nice to do. Gets cards out of the deck. thins it nicely, and so forth. And with that, that is all our monsters in the deck. Next up, going into our spell cards. Starting off, I am playing 3 copies of Ties of the Brethren. Ties of the Brethren is a pretty nice card. You pay 2,000 life points. Then you target 1 level 4 or lower monster you control for the rest of the turn after this card resolves. You cannot special summon monsters. Also, you special summon 2 monsters from your deck with the same type, attribute, and level as the monster. So everything in here is a light level 4 fairy type monster, other than Luster Pendulum. That means if we have Bountiful Artemis and we have Ties of the Brethren, we can bring out an Honest and a Barrier Statue of the Heavens, which is incredibly powerful, because especially with Honest going back to our hand to protect it. And that just sets us up a lot of cards. Very cool. And this is always a cool card that I like, so when I have a reason to play it, it's very nice too, and certainly has a home here. Now do note that you can't use your battle phase the turn you use this effect. Usually not a big deal, because you're looking to get that on the open. Next up, I am playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. Our extra deck in this deck is best used to get cards. So we're going to play Pot of Extravagance, banish 3 to 6 random cards from our extra deck, and draw a card for every 3 that we did. So we banish 6 and draw 2. Pretty nice deal. Now, of course, we can't do any more drawing after that, but that's not a big deal. Usually we're going to get Bountiful Artemis draw on our opponent's turn. Next up, I'm playing 2 Pots of Duality. If you're not doing Ties of the Brethren, you got Pot of Duality to find a key combo piece. Maybe you need Bountiful Artemis. Maybe you'd like the Barrier Statue. Maybe you need another good counter trap card. Just something like that. And Pot of Duality can get us that. And last for the spells, I'm playing 1 copy of Moon Mirror Shield. Moon Mirror Shield, of course, is an equipped spell that if equipped to a monster, whenever that monster battles an opponent's monster, its attack becomes equal to either the attack or defense of the opponent's monster, whichever is higher, plus 100. So Moon Mirror Shield just means your monster is always going to win battle. And that's very important because Bountiful Artemis only has 1,600 attack. The Barrier Statue only has 1,000 attack. So we want to make sure that they don't just summon a monster and run over it. So having a copy of Moon Mirror Shield is nice. Moon Mirror Shield, of course, also, this face-up card is sent from the field to the graveyard. You pay 500 life points, place it on the top or bottom of the deck by that card's effect. So just a little option and to have, and that is our spell cards. Next, we are getting into our trap cards here. First off, I'm playing 1 copy of Rebirth of Parshath. This is a counter trap that says when a spell or trap or monster effect is activated, reveal a counter trap in your hand, then discard 1 card and pay 1,000 life points to negate the activation. And if you do, shuffle that card into the deck. Then you can special summon a Parshath monster from your deck or extra deck, which is a pretty nice payoff for the have. The only thing about this card, arguably it's not a good card that's worth running because it is only really playable if you have Guiding Ariadne on the field to stop yourself from having to pay that cost. But if you do have Guiding Ariadne, it's pretty nice because it just counters pretty much any card and summons you a big monster from your deck or extra deck. So for that, and given that it is one of the archetype specific cards here, I figure I'd play it at 1. But it's, it's fine. But it's worth considering for something else. Next, I am playing 2 copies of Drastic Drop-Off. This is a counter trap that says when your opponent adds a card from the deck to their hand, including drawing, they must discard 1 of those cards. So that's pretty nice. Anything they add, or if they just draw, you can discard that card, and of course you can gain a card off of Bountiful Artemis. So just a pretty nice way to annoy your opponent and get your Bountiful Artemis moving, considering bumping up to 3, picking up a 3rd copy, because I do enjoy it. Next, I'm playing 1 copy of Broken Line. Broken Line says when a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated in this card's column, while this card is set, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy the card. So you're going to be setting 4 or 5 a lot in this. You can set it in a link zone or, just easily setting one of these in a zone. It's very likely that your opponent can easily just play a card into the zone this broken line is in, and you can hit them with the broken line. After that, they may start playing around it, but at that point, you don't care because we're only playing one. So that works with those. Next, I am playing 3 copies of Ultimate Providence. Ultimate Providence here is a nice counter trap that says when a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated, discard a card of the same type, monster, spell, or trap, to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy the card. With Bountiful Artemis, this card just kind of recycles itself. You discard one to draw one. No big deal. But if you got Guiding Ariadne, then you don't have to pay this cost, and this is just an extra free Solemn, and that makes it pretty cool. Definitely worth having in the deck. Next up, I am playing 3 Solemn Judgment. Solemn Judgment is very nice to have in this deck. We just pay half our life points, or none if we have Guiding Ariadne, to negate a summon or a spell or trap card activation. So pretty cool. We can use Solemn Judgment to just protect our Aurora Paragon from getting destroyed off of a normal summon effect. And of course, just anything we need to protect, Solemn Judgment does it. Now, do note that at this point we've seen there are a lot of cards that pay life points in this deck. That is why Guiding Ariadne is so important, and you got to be mindful of your plays before you have Guiding Ariadne active. But usually if you don't have Guiding Ariadne on your first turn, you'll have them on your second with just how many cards you'll get. Continuing on, playing 3 copies of Solemn Strike. When a monster is special summoned or an effect is activated, we pay 1,500 life points to negate the activation or the summon and destroy the monster. Once again, another card that becomes free with Guiding Ariadne, and that's just a very powerful effect that we can't afford to pass up. Next, I am playing 2 copies of Solemn Warning. This one may be a bit overkill with the life point cost, but this one is great specifically with the Aurora Paragon because another card that we can pay 2,000 life points to negate a summon, including a normal summon, and that can keep our Aurora Paragon alive, oftentimes just ending a turn. And, also with Guiding Ariadne, it's free. So, we pay 2,000 life points, negate a summon or a card that would summon a monster. And that's fine. Good counter trap. And last up for the trap cards, I am playing 2 copies of Dimension Guardian. Dimension Guardian is a card that has been great in my barrier statue build here, but it's simply a continuous trap that says activate this type targeting a face-up attack position monster you control. It cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. If the targeted monster leaves the field, destroy this card. So we can use this to protect Bountiful Artemis, we can use this to protect our barrier statue, we can use this to protect Aurora Paragon even from destroying itself, and that's just a pretty cool thing to have. If your opponent can't remove those monsters, you can keep utilizing their really powerful effects, which is pretty nice, and stall for a bit. So definitely a card I like testing, worth considering another counter trap, but just things like that. Just things I'm trying that have been all right so far. So we'll see if it changes with time. But that right there concludes the trap lineup. Lots of counter traps. If you like trap cards, Counter Fairies is always a playstyle to be looking into. But that is it for the main deck. Going over the extra deck really quick, not too much to talk about as most of it is extravagance fodder, but the big thing about your extra deck is we have 2 main targets to summon off of the Rebirth of Parshath counter trap, one of which, of course, being Celestial Night Lord Parshath. This is the Link 3 Parshath monster. Basically has an effect that says you can discard a card to add Sanctuary in the Sky, or one card that specifically lists Sanctuary in the Sky in its text from your deck to your hand. So that does include some cards that are in this deck, and that's a pretty good effect we can do. Also, we have the ability to banish a fairy monster from our graveyard, to special summon a fairy monster from our hand whose level is higher than the banished monster. So kind of cool effect that this card has. Definitely not something that we can make use of, just because everything we're playing in this build is a level 4 light fairy. But, it's a pretty cool card. I would definitely say max this out at 3. The other one that I don't actually have copies of you to show is a synchro monster called Avenging Knight Parshath. It's just like a 2400 attack monster that does piercing. It might be 2600 attack actually. But both those cards, I would say you max out at 3. The rest of your extra deck is just mostly filler. Light level 4 XZs are a good choice because Barrier Statue of the Heaven locks you into light monsters. And that is just something to keep in mind. Just fill it up with the Parshath monsters. The rest of your extra deck is mostly just filler for extravagance. So that is it for my Counter Fairy deck profile. Let me know what you think. I enjoyed this deck very much. It's very fun to play counter traps, and I have all these monsters that synergize with the counter trap. It just makes it really fun. Love counter traps quite a bit. And what's always fun about this deck is, of course, this counter trap lineup. You can always shift around to play counter traps that are really good against your metagame, and that's kind of most of the fun, is trying to figure out what counter traps are pretty good at a certain point. And if you have certain counter traps that you like that are a little more niche but do have an application, you can throw a copy of it, try it out, and it's always really fun when you get it to go off. So let me know what you think. Be interested to know what other folks here are doing with counter fairies. And, there are other also plenty of different variants of this deck too. Like you can go Sanctuary in the Sky, or you can play some big monster versions. Just a ton of cool stuff. And so maybe we'll see more variants on here as I come up with them. But anyway, thank you for checking out this video. I'll catch you all in the next one.